We're ready to begin. Spiritual Development Panel number 4.
So today's presentation is MerKaBa, the energy body of light, the Kemetic technology for remaking ourselves as beings of light. And we'll talk about how we move from KaAbBa to MerKaBa, how we're making this dimensional shift. And these are long studies in our academy in Boston. So I'm just going to do some highlights. They're based on the books KaAbBa, Building the Lighted Temple with the Metaphysical Keys to the Tree of Life, and MerKaBa, the Great Pyramid is the Tree of Life, KaAbBa. All right, so today I have two goals. One is to talk about MerKaBa, the Kemetic technology for remaking ourselves as beings of light, the MerKaBa, and time allowing, I'll do a whirling demonstration, an advanced yogic whirling meditation demonstration for how to indwell the MerKaBa energy body of light. And there I am whirling there. What is the MerKaBa luminous energy body of light? It is our vehicle of initiation, rebirth, transformation, resurrection, first eye activation, spherical consciousness, ascension, transport, enlightenment, and service. And we look at the Merkut, which are of the Great Pyramid of Khufu, one above and below, and we look at the king and queen's chamber, we see in the middle here the MerKaBa as this bending back and unification is taking place. We now have the secret embrace, the union, the marriage occurring between Osir and Oset in the great chamber. Do you see that? You see that marriage taking place? You see the pole here of Osir and Oset and Haru at the apex. This is all our divine geometry, cosmology, all the template within us. This is all within us. And with this union, this marriage, this secret embrace that is happening between Osir and Oset in the king's and queen's chamber, and with this unification, we now have the unification of Osir and Oset, Ka and Ba, spirit and matter, North Pole and South Pole. We have the union of receptive and positive, masculine and feminine, electric and magnetic. This is the electromagnetic completing of our circuitry. And in this unification, when we complete our circuitry, then we have this explosion, this electrification of effulgent light that we begin to radiate. And this is symbolized by the rising of Haru to the apex of the pyramid. You see that there. You see Haru at the apex of the Great Pyramid, which is within us, part of our cosmogram, part of our template. And with that resurrection, we see this solarization, we see this stellarization. You know, one of the things that is the hallmark of those who have completed this circuitry where the Shechem, the Ra, is now rising along the Dejet pillar, and we are completing our circuitry through all of the chakras to have the halo, the light that begins to shine above our heads as our crowning glory in this resurrection that we undergo.
But as I attune my body and strengthen my being, then the light would just shine. I wouldn't fall down. So I want to attest to the fact that there is a light that shines within.
Yes,
okay?
Yes,
all right.
yes. Now, this symbol here is the flower of life, and it's in Abtu or Abydos in the temple of found in the temple of Osir. And I want you to notice here that one thing is that you can superimpose. If you see here, you can superimpose the linear tree of life in that symbol. Do you see that? However, what my research shows is that these two spheres are missing. But what I do in my research is re-reveal these missing Neteru. And these missing Neteru are Nit and Kemenu. Here they are, revealed here in the MerKaBa energy body of light. We are spherical beings. This is one of the things we need to come to terms with. And these Neteru, Nit and Kemenu, they have the tools of creation. They're an important part of our cosmology for remaking ourselves as beings of light. And to the extent that they have been hidden and unrevealed and missing, is a reconnection that we need to make. The MerKaBa Neteru tools of creation are the shuttle, the bow, the arrow, and the potter's wheel. And Nit, what Nit does with her tools is she makes the sheerest garment, the sheerest, finest garment, and what I call in my book, bubbly light, the sheerest garment. So her work is this entity or entification, this making us as these spherical orbs of bubbly light, the sheerest garment, the most subtlest of substance. And it is Kemenu who then gives us the earthy dust element, the densification or the concretion in our equipment, our apparatus, our constitution. Now, you all familiar with this symbol here, the KaAbBa of MerKaBa. You see the square there, right? And you see the whirling around that's taking place of those who are on the pilgrimage here. But this is just some of our story. We want to get and know the whole story. MerKaBa is our story. And it is the MerKaBa technology for remaking ourselves as beings of light that brings us into this spherical consciousness, not linear consciousness, but spherical consciousness. The ability to know the part, to know the relationship, and to know simultaneous all-at-onceness, how to see and move spherically. And I always bring my, famous for bringing my ball here. This, for me, is the first eye. We're activating the first eye here. And so it is the ability to see one at a timeness, relationship, and simultaneous all-at-onceness. We must imagine that this first eye is within us and that we are seeing in all of these, through these mirrored frames in every direction simultaneously all at once. And this is what we need to live in Ma'at. So how are we able to whirl? Now, whirling brings us into this spherical first eye activation. How are we able to whirl? Well, we're able to whirl because we're able to see in all directions simultaneously. And even biblically it is said, when the eye be single, what? The whole body is full of light. When the eye be single, so our whole body becomes an eye filled with light. We are in more subtle substance when we are whirling. Meditating, there's meditation where we're sitting still and we're creating that space within. We're creating that space within where storms are not. We all must create that space within where storms are not. That is the most sacred real estate that we will ever possess. That space within where storms are not. And this yogic meditation, this whirling, is doing that, creating that space within where storms are not, but we're moving, and we're accessing that more subtle substance, that fiery mist, that stellar substance, so that we may recycle ourselves. We may recycle ourselves and be what we need to be in this moment, and recycle ourselves and be what we need to be in the next moment. How do we refresh ourselves?
Thank you for your work, great sister. I really appreciate that. I wanted to ask you, is there any measured impact of this work that you've done in a group in terms of maybe a morphic sort of resonance or some sort of bioplasmic energy field or something that gets created and something that you all have done with it? And I'm asking you that because I'm not too certain, but I'm fairly certain that it's possible to do that, and we can use that as a healing balm. And so I'm wondering if you have any of that data.
Yes, my sister. We see the evidences. We see the evidences when we're working with the heart chakra, and we're working to help transmute those heavy energies, the heavy pain that trauma, heartache, disappointment, grief, transmuting all of that heavy substance. And so so we're doing that heart work before the scales to make the heart as light as a feather. And this practice accelerates that because in other words, when you come, I wish we had a workshop where we could come, and I've done workshops where people have joined in, and you see what it takes to do this practice, to whirl. Because one of the first things you have to do is you have a body, but you can't act like you got two left feet. You got to just get beyond it. And then if you had stress that day, or you move beyond the emotional, and then whatever thoughts are in, I'm going to fall. So one of the things is trust. Anchoring on your left leg, your pole leg, anchoring on the earth as we reach for the heavens, So trusting, what is it to trust? Even trust ourselves to turn in a circle and not fall or get dizzy but when we move beyond that and then begin to tap into that subtle substance, get beyond those dense, heavy matters, it is just so peaceful. It is just the most gloriously peaceful experience. And so, and then the other thing is, a lot of us are going to the gym. I go to the gym a lot, but when we whirl, we become the people are on trampolines or treadmills or bikes, but when we whirl, we become the wheel. What we're doing on the mat, on the floor, we put in motion. And it takes strength, it takes core strength. So you're working so many capacities. But, you know, why would our African ancestors teach us their 7 soul bodies if we were just to be collapsed in this dense physical body, you know, that sometimes lives 60 years and doesn't even collect Social Security? Why would they teach us? And we're more than just the emotional body and mental body. So how do we access those other bodies? So these are practices that access that subtle substance of those higher bodies. Particularly, for me, accessing the ku, which is Tahuti, which is accessing the divine ideation in the mind of, divine ideation, the divine Metu Neter, the divine ideation in the mind of God, the Creator, accessing that most subtle substance. Don't we want to access that rather than the stuff of concrete mind, which is just our accumulation of what we think we know? Some of it's kind of worn out, some of it maybe needs refreshing, but why would we not want to tap into, if we say we know the tree of life and we study the tree of life, then we have to move through the arits. We need, like an elevator ride, and get to those other levels. So how do we do that? Everything we do, what we eat, what we think, what we, so I hope I answered your question. Yeah. Okay. Okay. More. Knit weaves the little light knits together. These are superatomic particles, like the tiniest of bubbles. So superatomic science is trying to figure out this substance that we're ultimately made of.
We thank everyone for coming to the Spiritual Development Workshop, and let us give Dr. Nteri and KaAbBa and another round of applause. Yeah. And there may be a moment if you want to do one-on-ones, if you have time.